My name is Susan Schoenberger. I'm the Director of Communications at Hartford Seminary. And welcome to our webinar tonight. We're really glad that you're here. We decided about a month ago when we had to move all our operations online that we would try to do a series of webinars that would speak to some issues that we thought people would be wrestling with over this time period. And Ida Mansour, who is one of our staff members and a chaplain and a graduate of Hartford Seminary, kindly volunteered to lead this and help us through this, really wrestling with the issue of how does Ramadan happen under these circumstances. So I'm going to turn it over to Ida, and I will be sort of the moderator here. I'm going to ask everyone to mute themselves if you have not already done so. And we will have time during the session for people to ask questions and to chime in, and you should be able to unmute yourself to do that. If you do have a question that just pops up into your head while we're doing the presentation, then please go ahead and put that in the chat box, and we'll look at those as we go through the question and answer time. So thank you for coming, and Ida, you can take it away.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint, hopefully it'll come on soon. Hold on a second. Does everyone see that? Oh, nobody can talk, so I'm presuming that yes, everybody can. All right.
There.
Okay, so it really is a pleasure to be here to talk to you about Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum, shalom aleichem, may God's peace be with you all. And the subject, Ramadan 2020, is actually the year 1441. I thought I should make that clear after Hijrah, so people will know what I'm talking about. But we're here to talk about celebrating faith and community in this pandemic. I thought I would start off by initially talking a little bit about, hold on a second, about a few facts about Ramadan. So I'm just going to dive into my presentation. So initially, when you think about Ramadan, it's considered a special month due to revelation. We believe that the Quran came down as guidance during the holy month. There's actually a tradition that says that the Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, the Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, David, peace be upon him, Jesus, peace be upon him, Muhammad, peace be upon him, all received revelation during this month. So Ramadan is considered a month of revelation, and to thank God, we fast in this month because we're thankful for his guidance in that month. Of course, it's a worship practice. Fasting is a worship practice with, bearing witness that there is one God, prayer, charity, and pilgrimage. Fasting is right up there. And so it's used as a worship practice. I was wondering, I was hoping that Ines would recite. Ines, could you put your, could you unmute yourself? And if you could recite these two ayats from the Quran. Ines Rasul, of course, is Quran reciter. She teaches us tajweed, and I'd love her to read these two verses from Surah Baqarah, and then I will translate following it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. صدق الله.
Thank you so much, Ines. So the translation of that is, in the name of the one God, the most gracious, the most merciful, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may attain taqwa, or God consciousness. And it continues, it says, fasting for a fixed time of days, but if any of you is ill or on a journey, the prescribed number should be made up from days later. For those who can do it with difficulty, so for those who find it hard, is a ransom, the feeding of one that is poor or indigent. But he that will give more of his own free will, it is better for him. And it is better for you that you fast, if you only knew. So basically, we're told to fast, but there are certain groups that don't have to fast, and it's not obligatory on them to fast. And those include, of course, those who are ill, the elderly, the very young, women who are pregnant or nursing or who are on their cycle, and travelers as well. Fasting is to build God consciousness, as we heard before from the ayah recited. But it's also to teach us self-restraint. There are many Muslims who will, sort of give up smoking, for instance, during the month of Ramadan because they feel that this is the time that they can do it. So it's a teaching of self-restraint. It's also a way of strengthening our willpower. It's also a time when we feel compassion for those who are more needy, and when our tummy starts to rumble and we think about those who don't have a meal at the end of the day. Of course, it's very different from real life because many who are in that position do not even have the thought of a meal at the end of the day. It's also a time when we reflect on ourselves. What is our purpose? We were created by God to do something, and are we doing that thing? So it's a time of great reflection. And it's also a time to strengthen community relations. And this year, of course, we'll be doing most of that virtually. The top three we'll be doing more at home, but this final one, strengthening community relations, we'll be doing virtually because of the issue of the pandemic, because of the need for social distancing, etc. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the lunar month. A lot of people aren't sure about what the lunar month means. If you were to go out and you would on Thursday night and look into the sky, you will hopefully, if it's a clear day without any clouds, you'll see a new crescent moon. And that really indicates to us, it signals the beginning of the month of Ramadan. So many people will go out and look into the sky and look for that new crescent moon. And it's going to be around the 23rd, it's probably going to be the 23rd of April that night. As time goes on, May 8th, if you look up into the sky, you'll probably see a full moon, which means that we're right in the middle of the month of Ramadan. So around the 8th of May, when you see that full moon, remember that we're halfway through it and we only got a halfway to go. And then finally, around the 23rd of May, we'll see a new moon, which will be heralding the end of Ramadan, the beginning of the month of Shawwal, when we'll be celebrating Eid al-Fitr, which is a huge, ginormous celebration. Of course, this year it won't be outside, but hopefully all our homes will be full of decorations and we'll be able to celebrate individually in a big way, I hope. So coming back to the 23rd of April, we're going to be looking out for this new crescent moon. And I actually found a nice picture that I'd like to share with you. This is Zari and her friends, Elmo and Grover, and another friend, I don't know what her name is, but anyway, she's looking and she's pointing to that new crescent moon and she's saying, now, it's time to fast. And I just love that pic, so I thought I would share that with you. I just thought I would talk a little bit about the issue of the change in dates during Ramadan. Somebody asked me, you're fasting now? Didn't you used to fast in December? And I just wanted to explain that the lunar calendar is a little bit different from the solar calendar. We lose 10 or 11 solar days each year. This year, we'll be fasting from the 23rd of April to May 23rd. The next year, we'll lose 10 or 11 days, and we'll start around the 12th of April and finish on May 11th. The next year after that, we'll start on the 2nd of April and finish on May 1st. And in 10 years' time, we'll be fasting in December. So the days will be much shorter. I can't wait for that. That's going to be 2033. And of course, the cycle continues every 33 years. So in 33 years, approximately, we'll be back where we are in April. So that, I hope, illustrates the way we fast in terms of the different years. I thought you'd enjoy this picture. This is actually a picture of the number of hours people fasted in 2017. And the reason I chose that year is because it includes the date that is the longest day in the Northern Hemisphere. And so they looked at all the different countries and saw, you know, we fast, of course, from dawn, not sunrise, from dawn till sunset. People in Nuuk, Greenland, deserve a medal. They fasted 21 hours out of 24. That fast began at 2:16 in the morning and ended at 11:14 at night. SubhanAllah. I mean, that's a really, really long time. But then in about 10 years' time, in 2033, when Ramadan is in December, they'll just have 6 hours a day. So it kind of evens out. So they deserve it after all that. We near to New York, the New York time at 16.5 hours. Now we're around 15 this year. And the fast is less. And of course, Colombo, Sri Lanka, I included Colombo, Sri Lanka because I come from that country, but also because it's on the equator. So the times don't change as the years go on. It's always around 14, 15 hours. And so they don't need a prayer schedule at all. They just, you know, they're fortunate. People in Punta Arenas in Chile, they are fasting around 10 hours. But when it comes to December, they'll be doing 19 hours. So then it'll be a challenge for them. So at the moment, I'm considering moving to Chile. But at the moment, in 10 years, I'll be probably wanting to go to Greenland for Ramadan. So that's basically how the times are. And then in terms of what we say to people during the month of Ramadan, there are two greetings that people usually say. They say Ramadan Mubarak, which means have a blessed Ramadan, or Ramadan Kareem, which means have a generous Ramadan. So you can interchange when you speak to people who are celebrating Ramadan. You can use either of those phrases. I just thought I would show what a prayer schedule looks like for Hartford, Connecticut. On Friday, we'll begin our first fast, and that will begin at 4:33 at dawn, and we'll end the fast at sunset at around 7:41. Okay, and you can see as the times sort of move on, as we go down the the list of dates, the times get earlier and earlier for beginning the fast. And they get later and later for ending the fast because the days get longer. So by the end of the fast, it'll be about an hour longer than when we started. So this is a typical day that I think, yeah, this is just a projected day in terms of the 27th of April. I just chose that day randomly. But a lot of Muslims will get up at around 3 o'clock on the 27th, actually starting on the 24th. We'll be getting up at 3 in the morning, have a small meal. The secret is to keep hydrated, so we should drink a lot of water before we start our prayer. And a lot of us will be praying the pre-dawn prayer, which is called the Hajjat, which is a special prayer that people will pray during the year, but especially during the month of Ramadan. Dawn on the 27th will be 4:27 a.m. and fasting will begin at dawn. So people will try to keep in a routine, which includes things like prayer, of course, work, exercise, but also rest and sleep. There's a huge issue in terms of getting enough sleep during the month of Ramadan, because there's all these extra prayers during the night. And so we try to get as much sleep as we can, as well as doing prayers, of course. So this will be from 4:27 till 7:44 p.m. when the sun sets. So around 7 o'clock, I'm going to go to the kitchen and prepare a meal and set the table, and the family will come together. We break our fast with dates and water, and then we will pray Maghrib, which is the sunset prayer. And then after Maghrib, we'll be having a regular dinner. And then after that, we'll pray Isha, which is the nighttime prayer. And then after that, we have the extra prayer, which is Tarawih, which now this year we'll be praying at home. And many mosques will be broadcasting, on Facebook Live and Zoom, recitations and classes and lessons about Quran and how we can live our lives better, etc., etc. So rather than having to go to the mosque, because we can't, we'll be at home, hopefully listening to all these broadcasts. And a lot of centers have a lot of plans for this time. And then, of course, the cycle repeats itself. We have to get up again at 3 o'clock, so sleep is important. Of course, you probably know this, but the last third of the night is especially blessed. And so people want to get up usually at about 2 or 3 in the morning for special prayers. And so that's where the issue of sleep comes in, because we have all these extra things to do in terms of communicating and connecting with our Creator. So that's a special thing. So this is my day, and I thought I would invite Ines Lasel to share something about her day, and then we'll have Chaplain Safwan Sheikh to share what he's going to be doing. So first, Ines. Ines is a student of Hartford Seminary and a graduate of Qura. She's a certified teacher in all 10 Quranic recitations. And she's the head Quran teacher at the Farmington Valley American Muslim Center. Ines, can you just share with us a little bit? I'm wondering, I might have to just stop sharing this, or should I just keep this screen on? Let me stop share. Actually, would you like to just, can you like to speak? Because I can see your picture here. But maybe, yeah, go ahead.
I can, okay. I'm gonna start. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone.
Wa alaikum salam.
So I'm gonna share with you my last year of Ramadan, and my plan for this Ramadan. My last Ramadan, actually, I wasn't happy that much with my performance of my worship to Allah, because I just got married, and today is actually my anniversary, anniversary day. So I couldn't enjoy much with the worship to Allah as usually I do. I think because I am living with my husband and a new life and a new things. So I got sick actually at the beginning, and I couldn't fast for 2 weeks. And I fasted for 14 days, and the rest of the month is gone for, I couldn't really, even my graduation day was on the day of Ramadan too. I couldn't join, and I hear people are screaming from outside, and I was like, I'm not really well. So I couldn't do much that Ramadan. And this Ramadan, I am more like sad. For the past ones, I'm more excited this time. I'm much better, and I am excited, and I made my own plan to, and Alhamdulillah, Okan, my husband, also he is in the seminary, so he's finishing his exam on the first day of Ramadan. So both, we are gonna be free from a lot of responsibility. So we are just gonna focus on the prayer and reading Quran. I mostly teach a lot of Quran classes, but this Ramadan, I decided to give myself time, 6 hours only for myself reading Quran. So I am gonna review every part I memorized in the past. So my whole goal in Ramadan just to do one memorized Quran fully 100% 6 hours every day. And then the prayer, 2 hours prayer with my husband, inshallah. Can if he doesn't do our argument, are we gonna do 20 or we're going 10 or we are gonna do 15 or how much? But my wish and my plan is to do daily 20 prayer for 2 hours. And yeah, that's a lot of planning for Quran. So I'm so excited. I don't know that because last Ramadan I couldn't do it, so I am recovering, or I am so much excited. And actually, with Corona, is helping me to be home. So I'm not. I don't need to go to the mosque to go and teach or pray. So I am gonna do by myself, and that's saving a lot of time for me to prepare my schedule. So it's much more organized for me. So I'm looking forward that Ramadan is coming soon, inshallah.
Thank you, Ines. So inshallah, we're going to have a question and answer time after we hear our speakers share. So if you have any questions, please keep them or type them down in the chat. And I'm going to go to my next slide. I hope this works. Yes. If Safwan, so Safwan, I'm just going to grab this out. Hold on a second. Safwan is an Islamic chaplaincy student at Hartford Seminary and imam and chaplain at the Farmington Valley American Muslim Center. And I know from working at the Islamic Association of Greater Hartford in Berlin, the imam is very busy doing a lot of planning. And I'm wondering how you're doing, Safwan, planning for Ramadan.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be with all of you. I hope everybody's doing well. Just before even starting anything, I pray everybody's doing well and is safe and is healthy and are taking care of themselves, especially in these times. I think, sometimes we kind of compare our situation, as we should, with other people and those who are in more need and those who might be in hospitals. And many of us are better off in that situation, but it's still something that I think we should take a pause and just remember ourselves. I mean, as I heard in the beginning, I think some people were mentioning, I don't know if it was Susan or somebody else, they're mentioning being zoomed out, right? And I think that's actually very apt verbiage, because we're being zoomed out. We're kind of losing ourselves. We have so much going on, and you think you have more time because you're commuting less, but it doesn't feel like it, right? So I really hope everybody's doing well. And that really is, I think, in essence, what Ramadan is going to be like this year. I think it's going to be where I think people are going to think and assume, as I might be mistakenly believing, that we'll have more time somehow. And in Ramadan, the last thing you actually have is time. Right? As Sister Aida was mentioning, as Sister Inas was mentioning, last year she didn't have much time because it was a new life for her, right? And this is a new life for all of us. This is a very new life for all of us. And we're adjusting. It's the new normal. We don't know where it's going to end up, how long it's going to take. So for us at the FVMC, which is a long title there, but we just call it Farmington Masjid. It's a lot easier. We actually usually do Taraweeh prayers, right? The night prayers that usually go, last year they started at maybe 9:30 and they go on till maybe 10:30, 11:30, depending on how long people want to stay. So you have about 2 hours every single day that you would give. And it's people's, the highlight of Ramadan is Taraweeh, right? Many people will say it's the food, because the amount of food is just amazing, and it is. So you're not going to miss out on that this year. So that's a lot of good news for many of us. But I think main thing, though, in all seriousness, is the Taraweeh, is the night prayers, right? Taraweeh itself actually means like swift, or actually can even have the root meaning of having a sense of ease and tranquility coming. And I think one of the challenges that we've had, and I know Sister Aida can talk about it as more from the Berlin Mosque perspective, is that people have such a connection with Taraweeh because they're coming to the mosque. Every single person who comes to the mosque comes for one reason, and that's just to pray, right? Even if there's some other things going on, the kitchen is open, kids are going in and out, but people are coming for one reason. And it's such a singular focus that it puts a lot of blessings and puts everybody in perspective. Everybody's happy. Everybody wants to pray. I mean, people stubbornly want to pray. It's a good thing. I mean, it's something you don't find in other months. So what I found is that this year, because we're missing that, is that people have been very, very disappointed, right? They're finding, they're anticipating this spiritual hole. That's the main thing. They're anticipating a spiritual hole. And so a lot of the questions that we are getting, that I'm getting, is just, how can we have Taraweeh? Can we do it live, right? And I'm sure Sister Aida and Sister Nas has the same kind of questions being asked. Why can't you lead it on Zoom and then we can pray behind you, right? And then you have to go to this whole traditional, logistic, legal tradition about presence and about congregation numbers and about rows and about, are you in front of the imam, are you behind the imam, and this whole, but that comes out in this whole, just a tsunami, a wave of framing the tradition somehow to somebody who's never ever understood it. And I think at the heart of it is, as Sister Inas recited so beautifully in the beginning, is that in reality, the Quran, the month of Ramadan, the Quran does not mention Taraweeh at all. It does not mention Taraweeh. It mentions other night prayers, right? Those that are recommended, highly recommended to do. But the main thing Ramadan is associated with is the Quran. And so what I've had to do, like in a pastoral kind of, the Hartford Seminary, what's trained us to do is to really, pivot people from that which is a means to that which is the goal, right? The whole idea of Taraweeh, as much as community is a benefit, as much as going to a mosque is a benefit, that's actually not the goal. The goal of Taraweeh is to read and listen to the Quran. So one of the things that I'm actually telling my community members, especially those I have a lot more rapport with, is that I'm telling them that if you didn't know how to recite, didn't know how to recite the Quran, for example. I have my blue Quran here, which is it's a gift given to me, so I have it. It's color coded for no absolute reason. There's usually they're color coded for a reason. This is not color coded for any reason. So if people don't know how to read the Arabic here, right, and many people don't, Arabs and not Arabs generally, and Sister Inas can give you many examples of people from Arab countries who speak Arabic cannot recite the Quran properly. So I've been really, pressing on my community, especially those I have a close connection with, a relationship with, to make this month about reading the Quran, so that you have a situation where you have to pray and you want to pray like the Imam prays, and you feel at the bottom of it, and this hole that's being developed is because people feel, and I don't say this lightly, people do have this sense of they feel ashamed that they can't read the Quran properly. I'm finding that very, very common, right? And people, want to, especially if you're an adult, right? If you've been praying for the last 30 years, 40 years as an adult, and I found this typically for men, and I think that I support a lot. There's evidence behind that, where, it's very hard for them to come up and say, I don't know how to read this thing, right? I don't know how to read this book that I really want to read. So that's something I'm working with this month. Teaching especially kids, but even in my home, I'm trying to make that a priority, so that adults feel a sense of we can do this. So I'm gonna broadcast the Taraweeh that we do, and I think I'm gonna do it over Zoom. We're thinking about doing it on Facebook, but I think Facebook, the audio quality isn't that great. So we ordered a mic actually. So I'm gonna make a YouTube channel. No, I'm kidding. And we'll have a mic, and so we'll set that up. I think we'll do it over Zoom because the sound quality is much better. And I'll tell people that I will read, say, 10 pages, which is not that much. It's actually very easy to do. Which I'll separate the units. And after I'm done with mine, then I'm gonna ask people, hey, now it's your turn. Do it with your family. Do it at home. Do it alone if you want. And just read. If you can't pray, if you are not comfortable yet, you can just read as much as you can, and using scripture to really facilitate that. And one thing that we know from the Prophet Muhammad, I know I'm going really long here, but the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, he said that whoever struggles to read it, right, they get double the reward as somebody who's fluent, because you get reward for the letter, and there's even more rewards for each letter, but then you also get reward because you're putting that struggle. So if you're trying your best, you're going to end up getting more reward than the imam that you like reciting, listening to, and whatnot. So that's been really my focus, even for myself, and I think that has to do with the classes Sister Inas is doing, as well as that I teach kids. I have to be very cognizant of being confident in what I pronounce, and that really brings relationship. Somebody is asking me, You know, how do I study Islam? What do I study first? Should I study scripture? Should I study hermeneutics? Should I study legal maxims? Should I study practical law? And I said to them, learn how to read the Quran. Why? Because first and foremost, you're going to figure out where you're wrong and where you're right. Just like black and white, you know? Let's not go to the nuance yet. That's going to take some time. You're going to have a teacher, right? You're going to have this relationship, teacher-student dynamic, and then you're going to have a support group. You don't know how to say this wrong, how to say it together. We're all in this together. And I really hope to build that this month with other people here. And that's the main thing that we're doing. Another thing that we're doing in our community is that before breaking our fast, I'll be making a small prayer, small dua that I'll broadcast out. I think that will be on Facebook. We're thinking about putting that out there. And then I'll make adhan. We're deciding that I'll make adhan. I'll make the call to prayer. But I just want to make sure that people don't think that the call for prayer signifies the middle prayer, and that people can now break their fast, right? But that time to break your fast is different in Simsbury, where I live, and it is for somebody who's in Middletown, right? So I don't want me to make the call to prayer and somebody in Middletown is breaking their fast. So those are things you have to worry about as a imam, right? These little things that you have to worry about. But it's, I think at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of silver lining here. There's a silver lining here is that, you know, we have to figure out, really pivot to going to the goal, and realizing that the entire thing that we usually do in Ramadan are the means. And now we just have straight access to the goal, which is the book, the Quran, and to read it and to get fluent in it, to learn it, to be with your kids, and prioritizing sleep. I could go on about how sleep is very important, but Sister Aida did that. It's very important to get sleep. And now people have, inshallah, hopefully they have more time to sleep. But people have kids, so they never have enough time to sleep. And thank you very much for having me. I really want to say thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure when I ask to do these things and explain things from my perspective. So thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I'll pass it back to Sister Aida or question Q&A. Thank you.
I forgot to unmute myself just now. I'm sorry. So now we're at the time of questions and comments, and I'd like to know if people would like to unmute. I'm wondering whether I should stop sharing this screen to
I think you should probably stop sharing your screen, Ida, because then we can see everybody on.
Right? Yeah, let me do that now. Oh, wow.
There we go.
That's much better. Sorry, I didn't do that earlier. But I'm just wondering, are there any questions for Safwan or for Ines? And just if you have a question, please just unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear your question. Yes, Nasiba? Oh, we can't hear you. You're muted. Let me see if I can.
It looks like she's unmuted, so I'm not sure. Do you want to, oh, there we go.
I think she has
Connecting to audio.
Yes.
Not
yet. We can't hear you yet.
You could type your question in the chat. We all know how these things go.
Oh, it says, shall we try and unmute her here?
No, she was unmuted, but we couldn't hear her anyway. Okay, someone else go.
Okay, there's a chat. I'm going to look at the chat now. Are there any questions? Okay, please don't be shy if anybody has any questions. Oh, okay, Parker. Oh, you have to unmute yourself.
There I am. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for doing this. I'm the Director of Religious Life at Skidmore College. And we have about 15 students who will be observing Ramadan on campus, as well as, of course, a number of folks who would have been on campus who are now spread around the world, fasting at different times, some traveling and unable to fast. I mean, which is, I think, the situation for a lot of you who I recognize from working at other schools. So one of the things that we've talked to the students about is possibly having some, like a Zoom iftar, you know, just like bring your iftar meal in front of your computer, turn on Zoom and talk to each other, at least for the folks who are in a similar time zone. But I don't have a lot of knowledge of what else to recommend them for connecting I know how to connect them with our local masjids and their mosques and that sort of thing, but ideas for connecting to family and to each other when they can't be together.
Safwan, do you or Inas want to take that first?
Sure. I was going to say, yeah, thank you so much for the question. And it's a tough one. It's actually really tough, and something that I don't think I've actually considered or thought about, because I'm assuming in my ignorance that most students are at home, most students are with their family, and as much as they are annoyed by that, they actually should be very grateful that they are. And I think one thing is that you mentioned that you mentioned that you're doing, I think is really helpful, is that they have a connection to a local mosque. But then again, that can only go so far because you're not actually physically there. And I think an iftar time that people are eating together is a great time to do that. And you know what, just because, we can eat throughout the night, right? And many of us do eat throughout the night. But even if, say different time zone, their friends are, one's in California and they're in Skidmore, which is in New York, so they're far away. I think they could even have a time where, if New York breaks their fast at whatever, 7 p.m. and it's 10 p.m., 11 p.m., sorry, California is 7 p.m. and it's 10 p.m. in New York, whatever it is, what I'm talking about, that just delay, what, midnight, let's have a midnight breakfast, right? We should do that in college, midnight breakfast. And yeah, you're not breaking iftar together, but you are eating together and people can kind of have a conversation. That's what I would say, being distant and not knowing the students themselves. But if the students are comfortable, they can even do other things online together, like reading together. Like even, people watch a lot more entertainment in time, which I'm not here to say it's good or bad, right? But they watch a lot more entertainment. They have more free time. A lot of students do, actually. Surprisingly, they do have a lot more free time, and they could do that. I mean, at night, if students and they have, some of them might not have classes until like in the at 12 in the afternoon. They're gonna stay up. I mean, you can tell them not to. They're going to until exactly they can kind of bond together online. That's what I would assume. Not knowing much, and I'm not on the ground. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree about connecting them with the mosques. I think the various different, I mean, this is the unique thing about this year, is I can see a khutbah that Safwan's doing in Farmington Valley, and then I can see a daras that another masjid is doing. So we can actually go to different mosques from home. So that's a very unique experience for me. And we're able to see so many more people. So that's the positive thing of that. But thank you for what you're doing, Parker, for your students. That's amazing. Any other questions?
I think there's one on the chat.
Does my audio work now? I switched to my phone.
It's working, Nasiba.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Oh, I just had more of a comment. I was trying to wonder what would be a great way that I could connect during Ramadan spiritually, and I think I was kind of a hard time focusing on like one thing, but I realized that when I listen to like one surah and I really understand it and I just take my time and invest that, I realized that I really appreciate it and I start to feel like a deeper connection. It was really weird to explain, but I was almost late to this Zoom meeting because I actually was painting, and what I was painting was actually a surah. Like wrote down, it's called Suratul Buruj, which it translates to like constellation or like a mansion of stars. So I drew like a night star and then I wrote the entire surah on that image. So it's like, looks like this.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I just thought it was something that I did that at the end of it, I kind of ended up sort of memorizing the surah because I was listening to it so many times and I was looking at it and I was taking my time to write it. And even though it was like just one page, it took so long, like almost a while to like do, and I messed up a lot of times, but I thought this was hopefully something that I can do and focus on during Ramadan, and in that way I'm making something that's fun and I memorized the Quran. So I don't know.
That's an excellent idea. I love it. I'm going to start painting too.
Can I add something there?
Yes.
I think that's phenomenal because especially for those who might not be familiar with the tradition, who are watching, when the Quran actually was revealed, many of the family members of the Prophet and the companions, they didn't memorize the Quran like we memorize it today, where we just want to get done through it all the time. And the fact that you mentioned that it took you such a long time to memorize this is actually how the Prophet himself and many of the family members and the companions, they did that, right? They took their time. Which
Yeah,
again
I
goes
was
to the,
thinking that a lot of times I overestimate what I can do in a year, but underestimate what I can do in 10 years. And this felt like something that was really fun to do. And
right.
I kept redoing the same surah, like so many pages just scrapped. And it literally took me the whole day to kind of just get to something that I like. And I went and I got like little markers and stuff. And I got all this like ink pen and all this paint, and it was something that I enjoyed. And it felt like I also was making art at the same time, because I always felt like in Islam we don't really have pictures, we just have the like Quran and like those words. And so we believe it's like divine in that way, because we don't have images and stuff. So it's the Quran that's also an image. And at the end of the surah it says it's Lawh Mahfuz, and Lawh kind of made me think of like a picture and a painting. So that's why I chose that surah.
One thing, last time I think we were with the chaplain group, Sister Aida, do you remember? And Dr. Bilal told me, Bilal Al-Ansari, recite for us Surah Al-Buruj. And when I recited, I just like, he says it's very meaningful to him, that chapter specifically. And now Nasiba is saying it's very meaningful to her. And I never felt that connection, maybe strong with it. So I think it's my time for me to focus on that chapter in more deeper connection and more deeper understanding of it, because it's so interesting that in 2 weeks I have 2 people talk about it, that much connection, and I never have that. So thank you for bringing that for us, Nasiba, that you are helping me to build my own connection with that chapter specifically, to get what you got and what what Dr. Bilal Ansari also told us last time. So thank you for sharing that. And it's so unique way of painting and doing that. That's very unique and not very common. Mostly Quran is only about reciting, memorizing, and it's sometimes boring to do that. But this fun stuff, it's unique. Unless you have to motivate yourself to sit down and study Quran. But I love the way you were painting it and build your own connection with that chapter. And you encouraged me, by the way. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ines. It means a lot coming from you.
Jazakallah khair, Nasiba. Any other people want to share what they've been doing, or
There is one question in the chat from UVM Interfaith Center. Can you see that, or I can read it to you?
Okay, so are there any spiritual leaders and or masjids in the US that are complaining or protesting that they should be able to gather for Ramadan despite stay-at-home orders? Or perhaps that is only being seen in some Christian communities given the religious privilege Christianity has in the US? Okay, has anybody want to take that question? I'm just gonna.
In my experience, I actually was talking to Omar Tawil, who's another student. He's actually the imam at Arizona, and I was talking to other imams as well in different states. And generally speaking, there's a fascinating kind of dynamic going on where you have the Taraweeh issue of can we pray online or what, which is a central question that people are asking nowadays. But generally speaking, that's more of been a top-down kind of worry where, you know, masjid boards are worried about it, masjid imams are worried about it, you know, these Facebook scholars have to, you know, scholars who are on Facebook, they have to comment on it, or Instagram, they have to comment on it. But I found, generally speaking, the people, they don't, once they get the understanding why, and they understand and they realize that, yeah, it seems kind of new anyway, we're in tough times anyway, this is good. So I haven't found a sheer, you know, protest against it. If anything, not from like people at mass in general. If anything, there's been a little bit more of a back and forth with mosque boards and mosque, you know, higher ups and people who have a lot of pull in the communities that they have been the ones who are pushing for this. But in people generally are like, you know, as long as there's something we're going to be good for that. That's what I found experience, and that's what Brother Omar Tawil was mentioning as well, who's the imam in Arizona, and other imams as well on this topic. Yeah, so not in America, I haven't seen any kind of protest, or we will pray no matter what. I think there might be 1 or 2 communities in Connecticut that might be doing Tarawih, but even that, that's just a guess of mine. I don't think any officially I've seen anything yet.
Right. I know we had some issues initially when we closed down for Jummah. People were very shocked because it had never happened before, and there weren't protests, but there were people who weren't happy, including me, including a lot of our community, and even we have a FaceTime live every week. And a lot of the questions are, when will we be able to celebrate Eid together? When can we get together? And it's a constant question that we're getting. But I think people realize this, the seriousness of this issue. And we're told again and again, if you save one life, you've saved all humanity. And so this is the way to save lives, is to stay home. And so that's the line we're using in terms of encouraging people to stay home and to respect the rules. But thank you for that question. Any others have any questions? You're very welcome.
If no one has a questions, I just want to mention when last year I break my fast for 14 days. That was a lot for me to make up the fasting during the year. So I'm required, if I didn't fast during the Ramadan time because of my health, then I am required to do during the year. So I was choosing the winter time to make it short and easy to fast. So I did that, but it was very the feeling of fasting different than Ramadan time is not the same. So I wish this year my health will be good and I complete my fast during the time, so I don't miss because it's very hard to make up after it, and you don't feel the same taste when everybody is fasting and it's the months for fasting and the months for reading Quran. But when you were just making up the time, the fasting is just like you are commanded to do that. So it's like I have to. It's not a spiritual feeling with others, unless I have to create that environment for myself to reconnect, as this fasting is for worship. So I just want to mention, when I don't fast on Ramadan, I am supposed to fast anytime during the year, but before this Ramadan, so I'm done with all the fasting, alhamdulillah, during the year. So I am ready for the new Ramadan with a good health and excitement, so much excitement, I think. So, but alhamdulillah, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. And if you're elderly, you're not supposed to, you're not obligated to fast. So a lot of the elderly will feed a poor person. We have a lot of community who are giving to shelters at this time, and it's really nice to see the community coming together on these community service sort of issues. So it's nice to see that. Thank you, Ines. Any other questions?
I just wanted to add on that. I think
Yes,
Sister Ines is pointing out, and you were mentioning as well, about those who cannot or maybe they miss their fast, or they cannot fast for myriad of reasons. And I think that's, as leaders, as those, regardless if you're functioning as an imam, as a teacher, as a colleague, or head of a department, whatever it may be, I think one thing to really understand here is that there are people in the community that I serve that cannot fast. One time I wasn't talking about just fasting, but a conversation came up, and we're talking about how fasting is important, and I have the struggle of being with those who don't have food, and the things you commonly hear every year, right? And then I know that one of the people who was listening to this was diabetic, and he could not fast any day of the Ramadan. So for him to hear every single day, or every single sermon, or every single nightly prayer afterwards, I'm mentioning, oh, fasting, isn't it great to feel hunger again, and feeling like you don't need anything, is it materialism, and go on rants and rants like many imams do, and it's just not it's not hitting him. Like he is getting more and more guilty and more, especially, you know, and what do you want to open up to any kind of questions people have, especially about, you know, prayer, especially for women, you know, who might be on their period, who cannot, you know, who don't fast during that week or how many days it is, you know, and you're just harping on that, you know, fasting. And this becomes a big disconnect, right? Elderly is another reason. And you don't know, some people have immune now realizing because of Corona, they have other issues that they're dealing with, or they're sick. As Srinath mentioned, she was sick for 14 days last year. I would not have known, right? I wouldn't know if she was, you know. And so it's very important to, again, go at the heart of the situation, which is to get closer to God. And that's why the doors of mercy, as you mentioned, are opened up in this month more so than others. Yeah.
Thank you, Safwan. All right, any other questions? Oh, we have one. I'd like to ask for suggestions for inspiration websites, podcasts. So are there any websites that you can suggest in terms of inspiration? I know that there are some beautiful podcasts from Yasser Qadi, who does a very nice podcast every week on Quran and on this pandemic, and he gives a lot of advice on what to do and how really the pandemic. I saw a clip from him the other day where he spoke about how, you know, in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, how, you know, people would be in their homes and they wouldn't go for Tarawih and they'd pray extra tahajjud prayer and those kinds of things. So those, yeah, there are many things online. Safwan, would you recommend anything?
Yeah, there's many people. I mean, it's just what's your cup of tea? Are you green tea? Are you Earl Grey? I mean, there's just so many. Are you coffee? Right? What do you like? There's so many people. There's so many podcasts. And alhamdulillah, we're in an age where it's not just male oriented. People think that it is, and it's. I mean, to a large degree, yes, there's that privilege still exists. But there are even, you know, women out there, scholars, activists who would give a lot. There's podcasts upon podcasts nowadays. And I think it's just a matter of what you want to learn. I think would be good if you want to engage with it. Do you want, you know, more about Quran? Is it just about one chapter? Sister Nasiba was mentioning, hope I'm saying that right, about just one chapter. Is it about the life of the Prophet? For students, there are different things that they're, you know, attracted to, and then those things can engage them or guide them, to what speaker and to what kind of website that they like, and that would really help them. I know you mentioned more about you know, the students. You said that our students on campus are from different countries and their practices and customs are different from Ramadan differ, and that some of them are facing hardships because they're worried about what's going to happen in the summer. I understand that. I'm in a similar boat. So they're excited about Ramadan, but there's several things that are distracting them now. And yeah, that's you know, you hit the nail right on the head, right? Especially for students who are coming and had plans for the summer, whether it's internships, whether it's, you know, not internships, maybe they want to have some plans, traveling, whatever it may be, or they worry about people from home, especially if they're not from the country. There's even that additional worry, and then cultural differences. So they're actually, you know, a lot of not just distractions, but real life stresses are adding on upon them, and it really makes Ramadan very, very tough. And it's tough. I mean, without having a relationship with that person, it's very hard to give advice. And I think that's something that Hartford Seminary really preaches well, like not just going around and just saying what you think, which is very hard for me, as you can tell. But I think that it just depends on the person. And generally what I've been saying, generally speaking, is how comfortable are you with God alone can really gauge you in these kind of tough moments. You know, how comfortable are you with God alone? Again, this goes back to what my main focus has been, that without a community, without a support net, without a, you know, leaning on the imam, for example, for reading, or maybe you have your cousin who's really pious and knows these questions and whatnot, going to them. How are you comfortable with God alone can really, really impact on how you face these real life dilemmas going forward. It's tough though. Thoughts and prayers definitely for students who are in that situation, and anybody in that situation.
Yes, thank you. And I just looked at the time. We have like 5 minutes, so we'll start winding down. If there aren't any more questions, I just like to share my screen for 1 second because I had something to share with you. Hold on a second. So these. Okay, let me go down here. So I just wanted to talk very, very briefly about the fact that the focus this year for a lot of families, Muslim families, will be family. And so there'll be a lot of focus on encouraging kids to pray and doing a lot of things with children. I know our youth group is going to have started a group where they're going to be reading to children in other homes online. And so there are a whole load of these books that they're going to be reading to them. So that's one of the things that our community is planning. The other thing that I wanted to just share with you, this picture, it's actually a little boy leading prayers. And we really should encourage our kids to lead not just cuddly toys, but our whole family in prayer, hopefully. And I think a lot of people are doing that. And this I wanted to share with you. This is a picture of my two children. This is Yusuf when he was 3 years old. And it's the first time that he ever made a supplication to God. So the word for supplication is dua. And what a lot of families will be doing after prayer is recommending that their children do the dua. And so this is the first time, this is a few years ago, the first time that Yusuf ever made a dua. And he basically put his hands to heaven and he said, Ya Allah, thank you for my parents. Thank you for my home. And thank you for my big sister. And he said that because we told him to say that basically. But then he said, but most of all, thank you for my Lion King toys. I love them so much. And so this picture always helps to ground me. Of course, Yusuf now is much, much older. Please, if you see him, do not let him know that I showed you this picture. But it's all, sort of, it helps to ground me. And I'll just go to the next slide. I just wanted to show you this slide. It actually talks about, it's a summary of what we can do at home. So of course, being able to read Quran, making dua, like you saw in the last slide. Families can do family tarawih, which is the special prayer that we have at the end of the day. And also qiyam. Qiyam means you stand and you pray in the night. So that's a very special thing to do. We're also recommended to stay active. We're recommended to call friends and family, of course. We're recommended to have a good and healthy suhoor. Suhoor is the word for the meal that you have before you start your fast. And it says here, host virtual iftar parties. And I was wondering, how we could do that. And I spoke to my family and I said, let's practice this. And I thought I would, please be patient. I'm going to show you a film of us trying to break fast together via Zoom. Okay, so bear that in mind. It's only a minute long. Can you hear that?
Is there something to hear?
Oh, it's just music.
Oh, yeah, I can hear it. Yeah.
Hold on, let me do that. Hold on. I have to say that took a long time because we had to pass the bowls. We lost a lot of bowls of dates to the Zoomosphere, I have to say. But it was a lot of fun making it for my family. On a serious note, I would like to thank you all. Sorry, I'm going to go back here. I'd like to thank you all. Wish you Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem. And I really pray that, may you be blessed and have this happy Ramadan. May your Ramadan be filled with reflection, with prayer, with connection, and may you be blessed with a content heart. And may God surround you with his love and his light at this time. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Susan Schoenberger, who's Director of Outreach and Communications, to speak about the classes that are going to be happening in the summer. I'm just going to go to that next slide. It's all yours, Susan.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Ida, Inas, Safwan, everybody who participated. It's great to have you here. I just wanted to show you quickly that we have a summer lineup of online classes Some of you have probably seen this before, but we are offering half off for creditors and auditors. This is really to say that we'd like to help out. We know this is a tough time for everyone. These classes, we are very excited about the content, and a new class that just came up. We just put together really very quickly, Interfaith Leadership in Times of Crisis. There are a number of other classes on there that will in many ways relate to what we're all dealing with right now. So please take a look at those. Happy to give you any more information. And then just as an option, these webinars are obviously, they're free, but if you do feel that you are in a place where you can make a contribution, there's a quick way to do that. Just take your cell phone and call up your camera and just open the camera right at that QR code, and right at the top you'll see a link to our donor page. So it's a quick and easy way to do that. Again, no obligation, but thank you all so much for attending, and please take a look at the other webinars we have coming up. One is on Friday, and that is about faith communities and doing online giving and how important that is right now. So take a look at our website for those, and thank you again for coming. Have a good evening, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Bye bye.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam. Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you, Imam. Thank you, Imam Safwan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Afwan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum.
Thanks so much, Aida.
You're very welcome, Yechezkel.
Barakat to Reza and everyone in the family. Beautiful
you,
photos. Who was the Imam praying before the stuffed animals?
I am not sure, actually. That's a good
okay.
question.
Priceless photo. Thank you.
Hi, Haskell. Good to see you.
Thank you, Susan, for everything. For all the webinars you're running. Thank you so much. Blessings to all. Hope to see you virtually in chapel on Wednesday, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Inshallah. Hayati.
Bye.
Ma'as salama. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.